You know, before you even utter a single word of the Islamic prayer, the Salah, there's this foundational checklist you have to go through. And these aren't just, helpful suggestions. We're talking about 6 essential conditions that literally determine if the prayer is valid right from the get-go.
Yup, 6 of them. And a great way to think about them is like they're the pillars holding up the entire act of worship. If one of them is missing, the whole structure just isn't sound. They make sure everything is perfectly in place before you begin that conversation with God.
So the big question is, what are these 6 conditions? And why are they so important? What's the deeper reason they're so fundamental to the act of prayer? Okay, let's dive in and break down each one.
All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we're going to look at the principle of purity. Then, we'll get into the physical framework of the prayer. After that, we'll talk about what's really at the heart of the matter, your intention. And to rack it up, we'll explore some special cases. What to do when following these rules seems just about impossible.
Our journey starts with a really core concept called Taharah, which just means purity. This one single principle is so important, it actually covers the first 3 prerequisites, and they're all about making sure you're in a state of complete cleanliness.
Now, when we talk about purity of the body, there's a really crucial difference we need to understand. First, you've got what's called ritual impurity. It's an unseen state that you remove by doing ablution or wudu. But then you've also got physical impurity. We're talking actual, tangible stuff that needs to be physically washed off. You've got to take care of both before you can pray.
And this whole idea of purity, it doesn't just stop with your body. It's totally holistic. It extends to the clothes you're wearing and even the very spot on the ground where you plan to pray. All 3 of these have to be free from any physical impurity.
And this isn't just a rule from later scholars, it's anchored directly in the Quran, which explicitly commands believers, and your garments purify them. That right there cements this as an absolutely non-negotiable prerequisite for a valid prayer. Okay, so we've covered purity. Let's move on to the next set of conditions. These are all about setting up the physical framework for the prayer, how we present ourselves, and where we turn our focus.
So, prerequisite number 4 is all about covering what's known as the awrah. This is a really important act of modesty and reverence, and it ensures that what you're wearing is appropriate for the sanctity of standing before the divine.
Now, the specific parts of the body that need to be covered are very clearly defined. For a man, it's the area from below his navel down to below his knees. For a free woman, it's her entire body with the exception of her face and hands. And for a female slave, the area specified is the abdomen and back.
All right, next up we have the 5th condition, facing the Qibla. This is the direction of the Kaaba in Mecca, and it acts as this incredible unified focal point for Muslims praying all across the globe.
Now, there's a really practical detail to this rule. If you happen to be so close that you can actually see the Kaaba, well, then you have to face the building itself. But for the vast majority of us who are far away, our duty is to face its general direction. The intention is what's key.
And now we've arrived at the 6th and final prerequisite. This one is a big shift, because we move from all the external preparations to something purely internal. This is all about the state of your heart and mind. It's the niyyah, or your intention.
This incredibly simple but profound statement from the Prophet Muhammad is the bedrock of this whole rule. It tells us that the real value of any act of worship comes down to the purpose and the intention behind it.
So what is niyyah really? It's a silent, definite knowledge deep within your heart. It's that internal recognition of which specific prayer you're about to perform. Is it the Dhuhr prayer, the Asr prayer, and so on? And this part is absolutely crucial. It's an act of the heart. It's not something you have to say out loud.
Now, there are a few key things to remember about the intention. First, it has to be there right at the moment you begin the prayer. It also has to be specific to the prayer you're about to perform. And if you're praying in a group, your intention also has to include the fact that you're following the prayer leader, the imam.
Okay, so those are the rules. But life is complicated, right? What happens when meeting one of these conditions is just impossible? Well, Islamic law actually provides some really clear and compassionate guidance for these kinds of tough situations.
Let's think about a really difficult scenario. Imagine someone has absolutely nothing to wear to cover their aura. Does that just mean they can't pray?
Not at all. The guidance here is actually incredibly compassionate. The person should pray while seated, which helps preserve as much modesty as possible. They use head gestures to indicate the bowing and prostrating. And guess what? Their prayer is considered 100% valid.
All right, here's another one that's pretty common.
You're in a new place, you don't have a compass, there's no one to ask, you just have no idea which way the Qibla is. So what do? The main principle here is all about sincere effort. If you're unsure, you use your best judgment, you make an educated guess, and you pray. And your prayer is valid, even if you find out later you were facing the wrong way. If you realize your mistake during the prayer, you just turn to the right direction and keep going. No need to restart. But, and this is the key, if you don't even try to figure it out and you end up being wrong, then you do have to repeat the prayer. See? It's the effort that really counts.
And this all leads us to this beautiful overarching principle. God doesn't burden a soul with more than it can handle. Islamic law gets that we're human, and we're only responsible for what is truly within our ability to do. Sincere effort is the real measure of our actions.
So let's do a super quick recap. The 6 essential prerequisites are purity of the body from both ritual and physical impurity, purity of your clothing, purity of the place you pray, covering the aura, facing the Qibla, and last but not least, having the correct intention, or niyyah, in your heart.
And that leaves us with one final thought to ponder. If you think about it, most of these rules are external actions, washing, covering, facing a certain direction. So the question becomes, how does taking such meticulous care of our outer state actually help to shape and focus our inner state of reverence and devotion?